Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be Military Hollywood Industrial Complex number 5, module number 5. I do encourage you to watch the other 4 modules if you haven't already. They run about 20 minutes long. So with that in mind, let's get started here. So the most important word in the title of this video is of course the word military, because virtually all, if not 100%, of all these dozens and dozens and dozens of murders and homicides occurring in Beverly Hills, Benedict Canyon, Beverly Hills on the Flats, Holmby Hills, Laurel Canyon, West Hollywood, East Hollywood, Silver Lake District, San Fernando Valley, Marina del Rey, Brentwood, are being conducted by military-trained black ops soldiers. In the case of the Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, Lena LaBianca murders, those I believe were performed by NATO-trained Operation Gladio soldiers because they used the M7 bayonet, and that there were over 154 bayonet strikes deeper than 1.5 inches up to 6 inches deep. So virtually all of those killings were done in a My Lai massacre style. And you remember that the My Lai massacre had occurred on March 16th, 1968 on a Saturday morning, but was not yet reported by our crack media until a month after the Sharon Tate murders, which would have made it 19 months after it actually happened. So I want you to know the words of Erin Valente, last words spoken to her mother on October 7th, 2019, after she met with a Jewish private banker at 2500 Sand Hill Road. She told her mother, "It's all a game, it's a thought experiment, we're in the Matrix." And if all your information comes in from newspapers, mass media, television, you're going to get stories that are, number one, fake or partially true and partially untrue. And you're going to get the stories out of sequence from real-time history. So the historical record from media will always be tainted or flat out wrong. You have to come to this channel to find out what happened to Sharon Tate or what was going on with those Zodiac killings up in the San Francisco Bay Area, because you're not going to find any channel on the internet that tells you anything remotely truthful about the Sharon Tate murders, that Abigail Folger's mother was a banker in Haight-Ashbury and a big shot, and she bossed around Timothy Leary and Jim Jones of the People's Temple, and she was the boss over Ken Kesey, and she was the boss over Bill Graham, a Russian Jewish boy from the Bronx, with his free concerts and needing his expense report reimbursed. And he has to go through Abigail Folger's mother, Eunice Mejia. And she lords over those CIA operatives. They're all working for the CIA, 100%. 100%. That includes Louis Jolyon West, who goes on to become the department head of psychology for UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. Walking distance to the Ben Siegel military murder scene. Walking distance to the Sharon Tate murder scene from UCLA. I mean, yeah, it's a couple miles, but it's walkable. All right, so anyway, let's get busy here with the Salminio. The Salminio, of course, leads us to Jack Cassidy, who was married to Shirley Jones of the Partridge Family, and, Oklahoma before that. And you should know that I think it's more than just a coincidence that Salminio, who was born January 10th, 1939, 6 months after Natalie Wood, whose real name is Natasha Zakarenko. Natasha Zakarenko was born in San Francisco on July 20th, 1938, 6 months before Salminio was born in New York. Salminio was born from the Bronx. Where have we heard that? That comes up continuously in my videos. The Bronx and Brooklyn and New Rochelle and Mount Vernon and White Plains, they pop up quite a bit. All right, so James Dean, he's in this story because he was born February 8th, 1931, so he's a little older than Salminio. He's 8 years older, and he's 8 years older or 7.5 years older than Natalie Wood, Natasha Zakarenko. Anyway, James Dean was born in Marion, Indiana, the Hoosier state. And he came out to Santa Monica Way and went to Brentwood private school, got plugged into the network, the military network that is Hollywood, and got into a Pepsi commercial. He was also the valet to park cars at the CBS television studios over there in Van Nuys, near Burbank, near Studio City. And Sal Mineo went from a car parking valet to doing a Pepsi commercial. And then James Dean went on to star as John the Apostle in The Resurrection of Jesus, which was filmed at the Iverson Ranch. That's the George Spahn Ranch that the media told you about. The Manson family lived at the George Spahn Ranch, which was a lie. There's no hotel rooms there. There's no bunks. There's no flush toilets. Nobody lives at the George Spahn Ranch. There's one little house that has a toilet, and George Spahn lived there. And I think they had a caretaker that took care of the wrangler for the ponies, Donald Jerome Shea, a.k.a. Shorty Shea, because he was, I think, 6'6" tall. So you have a caretaker for the pony rental operation that's also used by the Hollywood Cowboy cast and crew. And there's James Dean over there. That's where Ronald Reagan worked. That's where James Conrad worked. That's where Bonanza television shows were filmed at the Iverson and George Spahn Ranch atop the Santa Susana Pass. Charlie Manson, whose real name is Charlie Miles Maddox, he lived 4.5 miles down the hill and south on Highway 27 in Canoga Park. And he lived at 21019 Gresham Street in a 6-acre property with a big barn garage and 2 homes. So he's living on a 6-acre property. That's what Charlie Miles Maddox is used to, because previously he had lived at the Will Rogers mansion, which is 5.8 acres. Let's call that 6 acres. And that's owned by CBS and the Masonic Eye and the military bases. And it's at 14400 Sunset Boulevard, Pacific Palisades. You know, where Sissy Boy steroid beauty pageant winner Arnold Schwarzenegger, he lives over there. In that general neighborhood of Pacific Palisades. And the Will Rogers State Park. You should know that James Dean and Sal Mineo and Natalie Wood all starred in the movie, the film, Hollywood epic film, Rebel Without a Cause. And it was released in 1955. It actually was released in October 1955. And you may remember that James Dean was killed in a very mysterious, bizarre, high-speed automobile crash between Paso Robles to the west and Bakersfield to the east. He was within 28 miles of Paso Robles, which is on Highway 101, the Ventura Freeway, also known as the Hollywood Freeway. And he was within 28 miles of that, where he was going to have dinner that night around 6:30, 7 o'clock. They were going to have dinner over there with a group of other car racers that they were meeting. I'll get into the James Dean car crash in a moment, but you should know that he was 24 years old when he died. He was 24 years old when he had finished the movie Giant and also Rebel Without a Cause. And Natalie Wood was 17 years old. And Salvatore Mineo Jr., because there's a Salvatore Mineo Sr., his father, from Sicily. Sal Mineo's father was born in Sicily. Sal Mineo was born in the Bronx. He's Sicilian. He's born in the Bronx, though. Just like Peter Falk, who's Jewish, but he portrays an Italian. And he was born in the Bronx, too. Peter Falk. I mean, everybody's born in the Bronx. Sidney Gottlieb, head of MK Ultra CIA, born in the Bronx. Don Valentine, head of a CIA private bank called Sequoia Capital, born in the Bronx. Jerome Kohlberg, the founder of KKR, He was born in New Rochelle, New York, which I'm calling the Bronx. All right, so there you have it. James Dean is 24 years old. Sal Mineo is 17 years old. Natalie Wood is 17 years old. Sal Mineo is 16 years old when Rebel Without a Cause is released, and it's released just a few weeks after James Dean is killed on Highway 46 at the intersection of Highways 41 and 46. It's a three-way intersection, not a four-way. It's a three-way. It is a very dangerous intersection. And the car crash occurred at 5:45 p.m. Sundown, in case you're wondering, was 6:52. So James Dean was headed west into the sun, but he had an hour and 7 minutes of daylight left. So it wasn't that low in the sky. It's low, but it wasn't blindingly low. But I understand that the sun would have been in James Dean's eye. He was coming down a gradual descent called the Antelope Descent, Antelope Grade. He had his, it's a little confusing who was his passenger. It was either his mechanic or it was the stuntman from the movie Rebel Without a Cause and Giant, Bill Hickman. I've got so many different versions of who his passenger was, it's ridiculous. So it was either Bill Hickman, who's a stunt driver, or it was the Porsche certified mechanic, whose name is what is his name? I got it right here. Rolf Wutherich. It's a German name, Rolf Wutherich. So it's possible that Rolf Wutherich was the passenger of James Dean, or it was Bill Hickman, who's the stunt driver. Who knows? Okay, you're never going to get the truth. Whoever it was, they didn't die. They survived the car wreck, which killed James Dean. The person that he was attempting to avoid, he's coming down the hill. You've got to appreciate this. Then from the opposite direction, we have a 23-year-old United States Naval veteran who's attending Cal Poly, which is code for San Luis Obispo, California State University, Cal Poly. That's where he's attending, and he's going to, I guess, his parents in Tulare, which is just north of Bakersfield, near Visalia. So he's heading east, and James Dean is heading west. It's a two-lane road with a center line. It's a highway, and James Dean may be going 85 miles per hour. He may be going 55 miles an hour. We don't know if he hit the brakes. He's coming down a hill. He has the right of way. James Dean has the right of way. And the driver, the United States Navy veteran who's driving a black and white two-toned Ford, who's heading east, he decides at the last minute to make a left-hand turn onto Highway 41, which I'm very familiar since I've won a bike race off that highway 3 times. It goes to Highway 33, and my finishing line was at the intersection of Highway 33 and Highway 41. So that's why I have some emotional connection with these roads. I have been to this crime scene, people, and I'm calling it a crime scene. It's either a vehicular manslaughter felony or it's a homicide, because the only person that dies in this car wreck is James Dean. Nobody else dies. Only James Dean dies, and he's 24, and he's an icon, and they turn him into a bigger icon after this car wreck, right? And he's friends with Natalie Wood and Sal Mineo, who are just teenagers. Anyway, so what I tell you is that James Dean has the right of way, okay? And you wouldn't, there's no stop sign, there's no yield sign there. So at the last minute, this fellow by the name of Donald Turnipseed, who's 23 years old, a student at Cal Poly, he makes a left-hand turn right in front of James Dean, who's going between 55 and 85 miles per hour. So James Dean has to take evasive action. He loses control of his Porsche Spyder. It's brand new. It's a brand new Porsche. And the only reason he's driving it is that they're headed to Salinas up by Carmel, Monterey, County to do a car race because James Dean has been racing his car for the last year, and he's coming out of the novice class, and he's getting to be pretty good. He's won a couple of races, and he got a brand new Porsche to race at Salinas, and his mechanic, Wolf Watherek, suggested that they do some drive-in break-in time before they get to the raceway so the car is ready to race. That's the only reason they're driving this car, because behind they have a Ford Country Squire station wagon with a trailer to put the Porsche on. And that was the original plan. It was to drive it from Hollywood up to Salinas, but the mechanic said, no, you should drive it. So he's been driving the car for a couple of hours before this wreck happens. Anyway, he loses control. The car flips over 3 times at least and ends up somehow magically on the northwest corner of this 3-way intersection. I find this kind of hard to believe because having personally been in car wrecks and witnessing car wrecks of other people, typically if you have someone pull right in front of you, you're going to go over the center line to the left. And if you lose control, I could see where you'd flip to the right, but I don't see how you'd get to the north corner of that intersection. It seems to me you'd either be on Highway 41 or you'd be to the south of it. I'm having a difficult time understanding how the car could kind of change directions and go north, because it seems like the trajectory would take it to the south. It is a virtually straight line where James Dean crashed. So I guess it's possible, but I just have questions about this crime scene crash site. And there are multiple versions of what happened. So that is not a surprise if it is a murder, right? They always give you confusing chaos. All right, so anyway, this Donald Turnipseed, he doesn't die, and he hitchhikes home back to Bakersfield Way. He hitchhikes in the dark back home. The crash happened at 5:45, and the CHP, California Highway Patrol, arrived, I don't know, half hour later, at 6:15. The sun's going down at 6:52, so, it's getting late, and the sun's going away, and James Dean, everybody knows he's dead, but they proclaim him dead at Paso Robles at the hospital ER, and that is, again, a 28-minute drive to the west on Highway 101, Ventura Highway. So that's that. He's dead. James Dean has died. Then, 3 weeks later, they released Rebel Without a Cause, starring Natalie Wood, Natasha Zakharenko, and Sal Mineo, who are, at that time, age 16 and 17 years old when they are turned into celebrity status. You should know that Natalie Wood, of course, her first speaking role in Hollywood was in the film Tomorrow is Forever in 1946 with Orson Welles, where Natalie Wood portrays a German immigrant in 1946 to give some sympathy to those evil Nazis. Remember, there's a Jewish-produced film, Jewish-produced, Jewish-distributed film, and Natalie Wood is to portray a orphaned German girl who's 7 years old. She's 7 years old when she appears with Orson Welles, and she has a speaking role. All right? Now that's very important, people, because we know that tomorrow is not forever. For Natalie Wood, tomorrow was until age 43. And she is only 7 years old when this happens. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that tomorrow is for another 36 years. 36. She has 36 more years to live when she appears with Orson Welles. Orson Welles appears with Sharon Tate in the movie 13 Chairs. She appears with him in Rome during the summer of 1969. And she has about 3 months left to live. Sharon Tate. See, so Sharon Tate appears with Orson Welles, and she gets murdered by a military weapon. And Natalie Wood appears with Orson Welles, and she gets murdered by being thrown into the ocean at age 43 like a sack of potatoes, and she can't swim. Natalie Wood cannot swim, and she's thrown into the water on or around November 28th, 33 days from the end of the year 1981, 33 days from the end of 1981, Natalie Wood, who cannot swim, is thrown into the water between 2:30 and 3 a.m. in the morning. I believe that's a Saturday morning, so like a Friday night, and the media immediately tells you there's a lot of drinking involved, and Robert Wagner had been drinking, and Christopher Walken had been drinking, and Natalie Wood had been drinking, and maybe she went up to get fresh air and decided to go for a boat ride. No, they did the exact same thing with Salminio. Maybe that was a drug deal gone bad. They did the exact same thing with Sharon Tate. As a drug deal went bad at Cielo Drive. There was no drugs involved with Cielo Drive murder. There was no drugs involved with the Salminio murder. There was no alcohol involved with the murder of Natalie Wood. She's not drinking at 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's not drunk enough to go swimming in the ocean when she can't swim, whether she's drunk or sober. So that's applied linguistics. That's a subject for Noam Chomsky, to get you to anchor a bias of poppycock. In other words, to conceal the truth. That's what applied linguistics is. Applied linguistics is money laundering. It's the concealment of the sources and uses of money, which is code for the activities of people. The identities of people are concealed, and the motivations of people are concealed. That is a form of money laundering. That's concealment. That's what applied linguistics is. That's what Noam Chomsky is an expert in. Applied linguistics. That's concealment. Applied linguistics isn't for you to understand the truth. It's for you to believe in lies. That's what applied linguistics is. It's the reverse of the truth. All right, so what I wanted to tell you is that whether Bill Hickman was a passenger or whether it was the Porsche certified mechanic, Rolf Weatherick, makes no difference. But you should know who's driving that Ford Country Squire station wagon with the trailer, who is behind James Dean on Highway 41. It's none other than Sanford H. Roth, a Jewish man born in Brooklyn. He's 49 years old. He's like the adult supervision for this road trip. He's the oldest person on this trip because it's James Dean, it's Bill Hickman, it's his mechanic, Rolf Weatherick, and it's Sanford H. Roth, the Jew from Brooklyn. It's those four. Two are in the Porsche Spyder sports car that's going to be raced the next day in Salinas. And then it's two men in the Ford Country Squire station wagon with the trailer. Sanford H. Roth works for Time, Life magazine, Vogue magazine, Look, People magazine, Paris Match. Those are all the same magazines that promoted Sharon Tate. Those are the same magazines that promoted Natalie Wood. Those are CIA magazines. Those are the ones that concealed the Zapruder film of the John Kennedy assassination, the publisher of Life magazine, who formed the Bilderberg Group in 1951, the Bilderberg Group, and attended every Bilderberg conference until his death in 1962. Just before the Jack Kennedy assassination. That's who controls Life magazine. That's who controls Sanford H. Roth. That's who provided the photography for Sharon Tate's photo shoot at Cielo Drive in March 1969 to create the illusion that she lived in that home and that this was her home with Roman Polanski, who she was not married to. That was a made-for-television to fake you out marriage. And she never lived in that house. Nobody lived in that house except for maybe, one of the Rothschilds' granddaughters, and Jane Fonda and Henry Fonda and Doris Day's son and Candice Bergen maybe lived in that house for a few weeks or so. And Cary Grant spent a couple nights there. But it was a party porn house. And as later we found out, it's a murder home for NATO forces. And is surrounded by staging houses, which are all owned and controlled by the military. Hence the name of my video, Military Hollywood. All right, so isn't it ironic that Rebel Without a Cause produced James Dean, who appears to have been murdered or car wrecked by a Navy veteran on September 30th, 1955 at age 24. And then we get out to 1976, right after Sal Mineo appears in a Columbo, which was released, A Case of Immunity, where Sal Mineo plays Rahman Habib, who is murdered in the Columbo episode, and that crime is the crime that Columbo is investigating, the murder of the Sal Mineo character. That Columbo is released October 12th, 1975. Then 4 months later, Sal Mineo is stabbed in the chest and punctures his heart, which I'm going to call an M7 bayonet murder, Gladio. Because you're not going to stab a person and have him die with one stab wound. It has to be military. And he was murdered in the back, the rear of his apartment building off of Holloway Drive at a different address than I gave you yesterday. He's in the rear where it's private. So there's no witnesses of this murder. And Sal Mineo staggered a few yards and died in the parking area behind his apartments. And that looks like a military killing to me. And he's killed at age 37. And that's 1976. 4 years later, we have Natalie Wood getting thrown into the water where she can't swim, and she drowns. That's on November 28th, 1981, 33 days from the end of the year. So that's the three big stars from Rebel Without a Cause. James Dean, killed, murdered at age 24. Sal Mineo, killed, murdered, age 37. Natalie Wood, Natasha Zakharenko, killed, murdered at age 43. And then Jack Cassidy, was killed, 6 months after, 10 months after Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo was killed on 12/12/1976. And Jack Cassidy, husband of Shirley Jones, ex-husband, he's murdered, obviously murdered, in a incineration situation, probably involving chemicals and a blowtorch. He is burned beyond recognition in his home, right in front of his front door, like he's fleeing his apartment. He's nowhere near the Naugahyde couch, which that is a poppycock, ridiculous story that he let a cigarette lit. And, of course, was drunk, right? How would they know? There's no toxicology report that says Jack Cassidy was drunk. This just made it up. It's applied linguistics. And he dies at December 12th, 1976. So 12/12/76, Sal Mineo, 2/12/76. Same block. They live on the same block, Holloway and La Cienega. All right, that's enough for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to continue on. I've got some more homicides to review. That's it for today. Please share my videos because I am being shadow banned. And what else can I tell you? Better to be shadow banned than to have the content deleted. Have a great day.